Welcome to the Dangerous Liberty Podcast. My name is Gary Melton, and in this episode, I talk with Eric Stecker, the COO of Defiance Machine and McMillan Stocks, along with Taylor Niles, who's the sales manager for Defiance, and one other resident gunsmiths. This was a fun conversation. I think you'll find it tremendously educational and pretty entertaining. So now I present to you Eric and Taylor of Defiance Machine and McMillan Stocks. Enjoy. Well, Eric, Taylor, hey, we really appreciate you guys flying all the way here and actually doing this in person. A lot of times we're doing this stuff remotely, and it's not nearly as fun. And I think it's just super cool that you took the time and you came here, and we're doing this in person. So I get to meet both of you guys. And I've been excited to do this podcast. Number one, we're real proud to have Defiance as part of our product lineup. When we started Paramount Custom Rifle Works, we wanted to make sure that we were providing the best components, ultimately are going to create the best rifles possible. And it was immediate. We knew that we were going to go make sure that we were offering Defiance actions. And yeah, man, it's been a great partnership already. And the fact that you guys took the time to come out here, I think says a lot. So real quick, if you will, Eric, just kind of introduce yourself to viewers for people that don't know you. And then Taylor, we're going to have you introduce yourself as well.
Okay. Well, I'm Eric Stecker. I'm the COO of Defiance and McMillan. I started my career in the firearms industry with Berger Bullets. Nice. I worked for Walt Berger. He's actually my grandfather-in-law. So
really?
I married his granddaughter.
Wow.
Yeah, she's smoking hot, so that was great. So I grew up, I spent about 30 years in Berger and was deeply involved in all of that. And I'm very excited and proud of all of that. Berger eventually sold to Nammo, and now it's part of Lapua, SK, Vitavori. It's under an umbrella operation called Capstone, which is like the distribution arm. And so I stayed with it for a little while, as those kinds of things can go when you give the keys to somebody else. It's just how it goes, and I was a big part of the direction of everything headed, and so it made sense for us to part ways, and so that's what I did. And started up with McMillan shortly thereafter, and was very excited to get involved in that. Another precision company, another premium product company. Was involved with them for a little while when I reconnected, or was getting involved with them when I reconnected with an old friend, Bob Beck, somebody who I worked with quite a lot in Berger. He was hosting a hunting television show that we worked directly with to promote the long nose hunting bullets. And he was instrumental in exposing that to the hunting community. And so Berger's growth over that period of time was largely attributed to Bob and his efforts. Nice. So when we reconnected, we have a lot of history and friendship. So started talking about, where is all this going? And as we were working with McMillan, an opportunity came up for us to get involved with Defiance Machine. And we were super excited about it. Defiance, McMillan inlets all of its stocks for, many, many actions, far more than anybody else. And the number one inlet that we produce is for the Browning X-Bolt, because McMillan makes stocks for the Browning X-Bolt. Right. So just from sheer numbers, that's right. The number one inlet that we produce. The number two inlet that we produce is Defiance. And so it was exciting when we found out about an opportunity to get involved with Defiance, and Bob would be able to purchase Defiance. And so that was a wonderful thing. So then we combined, McMillan and Defiance operate separately, but we are very much involved in using those two premium brands to promote, shooting and help people get good results. And so that's my journey up to this point. And I definitely want to thank you for having us on.
Yeah, no, it was great to have you on.
Your career is one that I admire quite a lot, and I very much appreciate everything that you've done throughout your career, your military career. And I've certainly been watching you a lot here lately, and the stuff that you're doing with Charlie Kirk is, I think, fantastic.
Thank you.
The fact that you're bringing data and facts and reason to a tragedy that needs to be exposed is, I think, a wonderful thing. So thank you for having us here, and I really appreciate your time.
Yeah, I almost, when all this stuff broke and we started getting into it, I almost called you like, hey, man, I don't know we've been getting pretty heavy into some of the other stuff. And I know some of the stuff that we're covering obviously is controversial to some people. I don't know why, but it definitely is. But no, I appreciate, you being willing to come out and still talk about that, even though to some extent, I guess we're getting a little political. I think it's just the nature of it. But no, I think that says a lot about you, the company, and, your guys is willing to support us and the industry at large. And Taylor, thanks to you for coming out. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, I appreciate you having us out here very much. Thank you. My name is Taylor Niles. I'm the sales manager at Defiance Machine. Grew up in a small town in upstate New York, kind of always been into firearms and things like that. Ended up attending the Colorado School of Trades, did a 14-month program for a gunsmithing degree. And then knew I didn't want to go back to New York. Had a buddy of mine who said, hey, I'm applying at Defiance. I would like to not go alone. So I looked into it. I really appreciated what the company was about and threw my application, and then ended up up in Montana, and I've been there for about 7 years now, going on 7 years.
Defiance is just a cornerstone in the industry. It said, hey, what is the best action available? Obviously, it is right there at the top. I don't care who you ask. What have you guys, since you guys have taken over Defiance, has there been changes? What improvements have you made? And, what did you guys kind of keep the same?
Well, my background at Berger and throughout my shooting, the competitive shooting that I did do was bench rest shooting. And so one of the things that was always true in Berger, and it's certainly true today in McMillan and Defiance, is when we look at our process, if we have to consider changing anything, it has to produce the same or better result. Sure. Now, fortunately, Defiance was designed, it was engineered by a former bench rest shooter. And so he designed into the action a number of qualities and features that are most successful at achieving a timing and tuning objective. It's one of the reasons why Defiance actions are regarded so highly, is because basically what we're doing is we're shrinking groups and we're minimizing flyers. And that's a result of the ignition control system. So the way the ignition control system was set up and designed, we walked into a situation that was already very strong. Mm-hmm. So the aspect of Defiance that we looked at most closely was just the efficiency of the operation. Now, nothing that we've done has made the product different or reduced the quality, but we have done some things. It was set up more in a way that was leveraging what you might call a machine shop operation, in the sense it's, a lot of variety, onesie, twosie, kind of specialty kind of stuff. And it was actually very thoughtfully designed in a way that I don't want to give too much away, but Defiance does have a mechanism for handling that kind of variety. Mm-hmm. That's actually pretty robust. However, it just happens to be a truth that when you start to standardize things and you start making things in with a more consistent procedure, you can benefit from some scheduling benefits, from some materials benefits, and you can make it more efficiently. And so the benefit there is we've been able to figure out how to make them in a way that allows us to stay competitive price-wise. And so that's a big deal for us.
Right.
Now, the thing that I'm very excited about now, and this dovetails into your perspective on how you're approaching some sensitive subjects, it's the notion that we want to be data-driven. We want to be facts-driven. We want to be science-driven. And so we're actually partnering with a prominent hunting gun manufacturer, hunting rifle manufacturer, who has spent a number of years diving deeply into the science of action performance. And he's developed some metrics and some testing protocols that actually separates and defines how all of these actions work. And we were so impressed with this young man and the things that he's doing that we've connected with him so that we can not only maintain, so now we have a scientific way to qualify our own quality, which is huge because we don't want to backslide. But then at the same time, we can also take some very strong looks at things that we do. Like, I'll give one example of something that we're taking a look at is there were some folks that were wanting a shorter bolt throw.
Right.
So we had the 90-degree bolt throw for a long time, and some folks wanted a shorter 75-degree bolt throw. Well, as a machine shop, it's easy for us to make a bolt that will do a 75-degree bolt throw.
Right.
And so we've got them, and they do work and they function. And the whole point was because customers were asking us for more room between the bolt handle and the scope.
Sure.
So we solved that problem. Now the challenge of that though is it doesn't necessarily, because we just changed the bolt, it doesn't necessarily align with how that tuning and timing system works. So now we're going to be working with this gentleman to sort that out. And so we're going to be able to improve that even more than it already is. And so it's with this eye on data, with this eye on facts, we're going to be driving towards performance measures that are real, instead of saying, like we're coming up with a device that actually accurately measures pressures to open and close bolts. Because that's one thing, you get 5 guys in a room and they're doing it, and 3 of them will say it's smooth and 2 of them will say it's rough, and so we're even sorting that out. But the thing that I'm most excited about is how we're driving specifically to things that are data driven.
Right.
And that was a big part of my while I was with Burger, because it's dimensions.
Right.
You
Got to
can
quantify everything.
measure those things pretty easily. For me to learn those same kinds of, I don't know if they're industry secrets, or at least for me to get a general understanding of how all those things work, has taken a little while. But the thing that I'm excited about is we're on a clear path to something that I can describe and is reasonable and it makes perfect sense. And now we can qualify these things in a very different way. So I'm very excited about where it certainly won't backslide. If anything, we're going to find some ways to make them even better.
Well, I think that's one of the things, typically when people describe how good an action is, I think the first thing they talk about is like how smooth it is. That's usually what people like. And being a smooth action, obviously important, but at the end of the day, what we're looking for is accuracy and precision, right? So what are some of the things that an action can do? And then we can get specifically into what you guys do, but how does an action actually affect accuracy and precision?
Well, so Taylor, if you could, I'd like for you to talk about things related to ignition control and how actions perform from your gunsmithing background to get a better sense of that.
Sure, absolutely. So, in the ignition control system, right, you want as little friction as possible between your firing pin spring, the cocking piece, and the shroud. Because little bits of friction can actually cause inaccuracies in a sense. So we do our best to minimize that. Now we also, precision-wise, make sure that everything is square and parallel to the center of the bore, and that we lap all lugs in-house to a one-to-one contact, which is something that, when gunsmiths used to true up Model 700s, that's something that they would do. Yep. So we do all of that from the factory here, which, may not take a lot of time due to the machines that we utilize, because like this bolt here, so except our handle and our fire control assembly, is made in one machining process. So it goes from a 2-inch piece of round stock to the bolt that you see right here in one machining process. And that's something that allows us to really hold close and tight tolerances. These receivers are made in about 11 machining processes. Mating these lugs to each other is something that really sets us apart and allows us good one-to-one contact, which is true in the definition of precision.
There are some things specific to all that we do want to keep a little bit secret because they are copyable.
Sure.
Well, but an important thing to understand about actions, and this is something that I'm learning, is it's not a feature specific, but it's how those features balance with the other features.
Sure.
So, like for example, when we put the 75-degree bolt, we changed things. Well, so now that changed things, and so until we get that balance as good as it could possibly be, there's some room for improvement there. And so we're eager to explore that. But now the difference that we're talking about, it's small.
Right.
But if your objective is to shoot tighter groups, and if your objective is to have fewer flyers you didn't create, not self-inflicted flyers.
Mechanically induced flyers.
Right, mechanically induced flyers.
All my flyers are mechanically induced.
So if that is your objective, there is a science behind it.
Sure.
And it's not gimmicky. It's a very real thing, but it requires some specific balances and stuff to make that happen. So the separation is one that those that know. And then the others, if you aren't necessarily a top shooter, then you benefit from it, because then you're learning more effectively, because shots aren't going places you can't explain.
Right.
You know, if you can know that, okay, this shot I was holding a little high right, and that shot goes a little high right, it's like, okay, even though on a paper it looks high right, I put that shot there, so that's not a performance problem. That's
Right.
a performance problem.
Yeah.
So-
Yeah, anytime that you can reduce mechanical variability, ammo variability, and again, this is just one more component that we're trying to ensure is going to be consistent in the results that it delivers. So, you know, one of the things that's great, but also a little bit, even for me, like I'm a bolt gun guy, right? But, you know, as I was doing our first dealer order and working with you guys, man, you guys offer a lot of different options. So what I'd like to kind of do is talk about how we can simplify some of those options for, you know, customers. And the one thing that always comes up is, you know, 75 versus 90 degree. Talk to me a little bit about that, the pros and cons of both a 75 and the 90 degree bolt throw.
Pros to a 90-degree bolt throw. It is going to be smoother. That
Sure.
is just due to the nature of your traveling the same distance that you would with 90 in a shorter throw. So 90s are going to be smoother. Really, that's one of the major differences. And then your 75s are going to give you more scope clearance, which is something that we hear a lot from people. They always want to create, you know, people hitting their thumbs on the scope. So to mitigate that, particularly with people running extremely low rings, is going to be the 75-degree bolt throw. It is heavier. We've measured it to be about 25% heavier than a 90-degree bolt throw. Sure. So you go from about 8.5 pounds of lift to about 10.5 pounds of lift. And you do lose about 10% of your lug contact, but through our testing, we haven't seen any accuracy issues with the loss of lug contact in there. But the major benefit is going to be your scope clearance.
If you are using extremely low scope rings, so if you're using a traditional stock, for instance, you have less adjustability and things like that, where you need those lower scope rings, you should probably look at doing a 75-degree throw. With people that are into long-range competition, PRS, things like that, what do you think should be the first thing that they look at, the 75 or the 90?
I would say the 90, due to the fact that it does have a lighter bolt lift, so it has a less chance of kind of taking you off target. It's not going to move the rifle as much when you're trying to cycle. And those people don't tend to run stuff very low.
Yeah.
So I would say that.
They're usually using like a scope mount, things like that.
Yes.
And one thing that I've heard from the competitive shooters is one of the reasons why they might like a 75-degree throw is because it's less distance to travel, and so they could have a faster cycle time. Well, if your action is smooth, I'm not sure how many people watch PRS shooters, but you know, some of the quality shooters out there like Nick Godarzi, and they run a bolt pretty freaking fast.
Yeah.
So I mean, the difference in the gain from the amount that you might move off target would be tough to tough to get excited about.
It may be a shorter throw, but even to me, I think for a lot of instances, it's still not necessarily quicker, because again, we could possibly be pulling that gun off target just because of that extra bolt lift that's going to be required. And then of course, there's a little bit of extra force it requires to throw the bolt down as well, because we do need that camming action.
Now, if I may,
Yeah.
there is an instance where the 75-degree bolt throw is not a requirement, but it's much more helpful and important, is we have a titanium round-bodied action that does not have the integral rail.
Right.
In that case, well, they could put that scope almost right on. They could have very, very low scope mounts.
Right.
And in that case, if they're going for a titanium action with no rail, chances are that, you know, that's somebody that's really looking for lightweight savings. So they're going to have the short scopes. So in that case, it's a matter of function. You know,
Yeah.
for it to function, you're going to have that 75-degree throw. But those are typically folks that it's a hunter. So you're not going to be cycling, you know,
Speed is
10 rounds at a particular stage or anything like that. It'll be, you know, one or few rounds.
We're talking sheep guns at that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The kind that, you know, they cut their toothbrushes in half, that kind of stuff. So that's where the benefit comes from. If you're taking it that seriously, and,
Yeah.
and some folks do. We have you know, we have another action here that's for a sort of a smaller niche group, but that we can get into later. But that's the kind of thing those are the requests that we were getting from customers, is like, yeah, I want this super light action. So we took the lightest steel action that you could make and made it titanium.
Yep.
And then like, well, can we get any lighter? Well, yeah, we can cut the rail right off and, you know, just make it a round body. So you can put that scope as close, you know, it's the shortest rails you can possibly find. Well, now the bolt won't work.
Right.
So, okay, we got to make a 75-degree bolt. So we're just answering customers' requests with each product is what's coming out.
So, one of the things too that always comes up and that I'd like to kind of talk a little bit about is, the cost. So obviously there are cheaper actions available. So what really makes your guys' actions worth what they cost? And then on top of that, better than some of the other options out there?
The biggest thing in my opinion is there's no compromises. The machining method that was created by a bench rest shooter who had already produced 4 other brands of actions. So this was his 5th iteration of action manufacturing. And so he was able to pour into the process all of the best practices that he had experienced over the years. And so basically the understanding that I got from his perspective was this is a bench rest repeater. So you have all the qualities of a single shot, flat bottom bench rest action. So it's got all the precision, all the alignment, the way we wire EM the rails, the way we treat it so that it doesn't warp or bend. We put certain things in after certain steps because we know that it's going to have the minimal effect, so, and I don't want to give away too much. There's probably a few guys that know exactly what I just said, but we do things that are bench rest level on a repeater. And there are complexities to that. Machines these days are all pretty good. There's no doubt about that. But then there's how you execute. Yeah. Execution is a major part of the process. Right. And the process itself, are there checks when you need a certain check? Is there a step that accounts for some issue that occurs rarely, but you catch it through that step? Did you implement those systems in a way that's controlled? And the answer to all those questions with Defiance is yes. All of those things are a part of the process and managed. So it's a bench rest action repeater.
What is your process for quality control? Because obviously, even some of the best brands can sometimes, you can have a bad whatever.
Sure.
Whatever widget that you're making, there could be a bad one out there. So what do you guys do to make sure that you're delivering on the quality control side?
Well, we have about 6 different areas through the machining process in which our tolerances are checked. Now, tolerances are checked at every station. Headspace in particular is one that is checked at 6 different locations throughout the shop. So we, in order for us to guarantee the headspace, we want to make sure that through, especially lapping the lugs in every process that we go through, that is a guaranteed measure. So there's checklists at every single bench and area in the shop to which every machinist is checking their tolerances. We have, really high quality digital readers, mics, and, in assembly, one person assembles all of the actions that go through. They check for, all of the quality, the fit, the functionality, repeatability, and reliability. And then that's given to a final quality control who goes through all of the same steps, make sure that, they are of the same quality that he was anticipating, and then it's off to our shipping guy.
And if they're nitrided, they get fully assembled and then checked. Then they get disassembled, sent to nitrided. They get brought back, then they get assembled again and then checked. So they're checked throughout. Every time another step is taken, they're checked again. Nice. Just to make sure something hasn't moved, something hasn't twisted. Tools wear out. Machines, we just had a machine recently. We had to get a flow-through spindle head, $40,000 spindle head we had to get. So things happen, certainly. But that's why the frequency of the checks is to stop those things before they get down, as far along. Because if you messed it up early, then just, toss it, that becomes a paperweight, and then you move on to the next one.
And I will say that, we probably, we don't sell blems or anything like that. We probably scrap a lot of product that's just out of our tolerance, because most stuff is measured to 5/10ths of an inch.
10,000ths of an inch.
Yes, 5/10,000ths of an inch.
4 zeros over, or 3 zeros over, excuse me.
That most other companies would not cut up.
Right. So that's your tolerance, 5/10,000ths. on some issues.
On
On some things, yes.
I think headspace is within
Plus or minus 1.
1,000.
Yep.
Yeah.
967s are nominal value.
Mm-hmm.
I think most people know your 2 primary models, and of course you guys got a couple other ones that I want to talk about, but let's talk about the difference between the Deviant versus the Ruckus, just so people understand that, because I think those are definitely the ones that we sell the most, the ones that are requested the most, the ones that I think you're most well known for. I definitely want to talk about the Anti-X, both the standard steel and the titanium, but talk about the Ruckus and the Deviant and the difference between those 2.
Yeah, absolutely. So our main difference between the Deviant and the Ruckus is guaranteed headspace. Now we do have our legacy style handle here, which is only available on the Deviant. The Ruckus has a more modernized kind of cylindrical to a knob. The Deviant here has 7 machining processes that go into this bolt, which is the reason that we do not have a guaranteed headspace on it.
Okay.
Where the Ruckus style bolts are that one 2.0 material to a bolt, which allows us to hold that headspace tolerance. The Deviant was the second model that was released by Defiance Machine, the Rebel being the first. So they have the same amount of options. The receiver process is the same manufacturing between the Ruckus and the Deviant. They're made on the same machines. Everything is done the same to them. It's really the bolt manufacturing process that's different. The Deviant does not have a 75-degree bolt throw option just due to the legacy style handle.
Right.
That would drastically change the inlet and involve custom inlets, which most people don't want. Where the Ruckus will have a 75-degree bolt throw option with that more modernized handle. Options-wise, they have the same options available to them. Only main difference is the legacy style handle and the.
And if I may, if you wouldn't mind handing me this one. So, and I want people to understand, coming from somebody who's new to action manufacturing within the last 3-5 years, a lot of that doesn't make sense to me why you couldn't have guaranteed headspace on one bolt, but you can on the other.
Right.
And the difference is this right here.
Yep.
So because this is all one piece, this whole thing is one piece, except this handle is also one piece. So the split, the threads are down here at the bottom. So this whole handle is all machined out of a block.
Wow.
Part of the reason why that was done is because if somebody's out hunting or if they're in some issue and they lose their bolt handle, they still have a functioning bolt. And it's all one piece and, bench rest quality repeater, bench rest quality hunting action. So that was the primary reason why this was made the way that it was. But because it offered so many challenges because of how it was made, Glenn also designed the Ruckus, which uses round bar. So this is a block that we have to water jet, and it goes through a different even steps completely.
Yes.
Whereas the Ruckus action, the threads are up here. So this whole thing is just that big around.
Right.
And so you can, using that kind of metal or in that shape, we can do things that are easier to hold. Well, we're capable of holding guaranteed headspace, where with this one, well, let's just say we don't. It's not that we can't.
Yes.
We just don't.
Yes.
Because we actually can. But there's too many Deviants out there that were made for too long that don't. A big difference with the Deviants currently is the way that we're making them, we are now capable of meeting a guaranteed headspace. But because there are so many of them out there that were made throughout the years that might not be to that same dimension, we can't say that they are.
So you can't claim that the Deviants we can guarantee the headspace because, again, there's legacy Deviants or older models of the Deviant that weren't machined to that standard.
Well, they were machined to a quality standard,
Sure,
but
sure.
the way this bolt's made,
Right.
they weren't necessarily the same as each other.
I see what you're saying.
So as long as for decades, people did chamber jobs based on measurements on an action.
Sure.
They tailored the barrel chamber to the dimensions of the action.
Yep.
Well, when this was produced, that was still more or less true. And so it wasn't important back then.
Right.
Well, then when the prefits came out and all this guaranteed headspace stuff started up, that's when the Ruckus, it's like, well, how do we do that? Well, we couldn't necessarily do that with this until we decided to, and now we do. But the any Ruckus is going to be guaranteed headspace. Correct, Taylor?
Yes, that is
Okay.
correct.
Yeah.
Of course, the message when we hear, hey, we can't guarantee the headspace on that is there's less consistency involved with that, and that's not what we're saying. So basically, there was some point in time going back with where you guys changed your manufacturing process, where now we can take Deviant to Deviant to Deviant, and those headspaces are going to be the same, but because of previous models, you guys don't want to go out on a limb and say, "Hey, we're guaranteeing that headspace."
Correct.
Is that accurate?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's
Okay. All right.
You know, if people call in, you know, it's our headspace dimension isn't a secret, and we always recommend that people, you know, check their barrel to action with a go and no-go gauge anyway. Enough explosion going on in front of my face. I don't want to trust anybody. So, but you know, we will share that dimension. It's something that's measurable, but you do need a set of calibrated depth mics to measure that, and then we still recommend you check with the go and no-go. That's always a recommendation.
Because I've always heard that you really can't get prefits for the Deviant. That really isn't true. We can get prefits for the Deviant. Or
yeah, if it falls within that guaranteed headspace tolerance, the thread pitch is the same on the barrel threads and everything. So, you know, as long as it's got that recessed bolt nose, just like all other guaranteed headspace, that would be correct.
And isn't it also true that a Ruckus prefit also fits an Anti-X?
Yeah, so a Ruckus prefit would fit any of our actions that have a guaranteed headspace. Most companies call it a Ruckus prefit because the Ruckus was the first model that we released that had a guaranteed headspace, and that's just the one that everyone called it.
That's good clarification. So let's talk a little bit about the Anti-X. What was the intent of the original design of the Anti-X? And of course, we have the steel version, which is where it started, and now we have a titanium version. So Tyler, talk us through that, the original steel version.
Yeah, absolutely. So the steel version was something that we envisioned to have the lightest weight stainless action on the market at the time, to make a hunting action, which was something that was requested adamantly with guaranteed headspace and an integrated Picatinny rail. So the option that we had previous to an Anti-X would have been a Rebel action, which was a screwed and pinned on rail system with an integral recoil lug. So it was light, but it didn't have a guaranteed headspace. And everyone, you know, myself included, I've had a nightmare with, you know, screws and pins coming loose on a
scope bases coming loose.
I almost threw that rifle off a cliff. It was not my friend. It wasn't a Defiance, but it, you know, it still happened to me, and I'm scarred from that day. So I go integral scope rail any chance I get. So that was the meaning behind the model, was just coming out with lightweight stainless action that was hunting ready and had a guaranteed headspace.
And clearly you guys are doing a lot to, you know, remove as much material as possible without affecting function. You guys have a lot of skeletonization going on in the pick rail sections. Obviously this is the titanium version, I can just tell. It is lighter, but you guys have spent a lot of time to, you know, remove some of this material so that it is as light as possible. And I don't know if you know the exact differences offhand, but I mean, it's noticeable. So for the guys that are obviously hunting, and then of course, the big thing that we get a lot of questions about obviously is NRL. So what is the difference between, is there any functional difference, accuracy difference, performance differences that we're going to see between the steel version versus the titanium version? Obviously the titanium is going to cost a little bit more, but is there anything to consider between these two if you're going to be buying one or the other?
Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, one thing about...
I kind of like it right here.
Stainless, okay. You can have it right there. Listen, I want this one, give me that. Just a funny note for me, when we first started titanium, I'd been so used to the Anti-X that when I picked it up, like it didn't feel real.
Yeah.
Like it feels like a toy. Yeah, it feels like a toy because it's so light. But, you know, titanium does not have the longevity that stainless has, and that is just a truth of the material itself.
Sure.
So if it's something that's going to be, you know, putting a lot of rounds down range, such as like an NRL competition and a hunting rifle, I would not recommend titanium. Just because
if you're concerned about longevity of the product.
Correct. If you're concerned about that.
Now, when you talk about it's going to wear out, what are we talking about? Are we talking about the lugs?
Sure.
We're talking about specifically what are we losing there?
So yeah, your lugs would start to set back. Now that's going to be arguable over, you know, cartridge that you're shooting, loads, everything like that. We do have one that we've been testing in-house that has about 2,000 rounds of 300 Win Mag and 300 PRC on it that has seen no setback, no issues at all, which is pretty amazing for a titanium action.
Sure.
Especially of those higher calibers offered from us in that. We don't offer it in a Lapua Magnum just due to the fact that lugs do set back with titanium. We don't think that would be something that we're offering currently.
Now,
do some further
and I'm
testing.
sure this is like hard to quantify, like we would talk about, how long does a barrel last? But typically, what are we talking about as far as the life of this titanium action? Now, you just said essentially 4,000 rounds, 2,300 Win Mag, and 2,000 rounds of 300 PRC, or
2,000 in total.
2,000 in total. Okay.
Yes. Yep. And we haven't seen any setback with that. So we're still working on testing that and kind of coming up with a quantifiable number. But at the moment, I would say with something around that same, powder charge and everything, this is all factory ammunition.
Yeah.
Seems to be that 2,000 rounds is doing pretty well right now. So I would say that you might get slightly over that. I don't want to give a number because we'll probably be held to that.
Well, if we can, I think one important thing to do is to take them, and what everybody's seeing here is basically a purposed lineup. And what I mean by that is the thing that once you get past the how good is the quality, is it bench rest quality, and once you get that part sorted out, then the next thing as far as purpose comes down to his weight.
Sure.
And so what we have here is you've got, now this particular anti-X action, the anti is spelled small a, small n, capital T, little I.
Yeah.
And it was done that way for a reason, because when they designed that action, the idea was we're going to make an action that's so light, you won't need to use titanium.
Right.
And the reason for that is because titanium's problematic.
Yeah.
It's more expensive. It catches
Harder
on fire.
machine.
It's harder to machine. It's slower. It does now. When you think about how it works on a plane, there's a lot of positives there.
Sure.
But when you think about actions, the reason why I laid them out this way is because really the only benefit is it's lighter. And so if you're going to see heavy usage, NRL hunter, if you're a kind of hunter that goes out, multiple times in a season, you like to put a lot of rounds in your rifle, definitely steel is going to be a better option. But if you need it to be lighter,
right,
for your own reasons, sheep hunter, whatever reason somebody might have to have a lighter gun, if you need it to be lighter, that's an option. Now, one thing I can tell you that is what I regard as a good case study for titanium is some years ago, the Michigan FTR team, so this is an F-class team, but they're shooting in the FTR class, which has specific rules. They have to shoot 308s only.
Right.
So the Michigan FTR team, which at the time, I want to say it was like 16 or 20 guys. They had a really good team because it was all, the team was heavily supported by Brian Litz. By supported, I mean all the load development, product choices, training. Brian's a very accomplished long-range, high-power, and competitive shooter.
And he's a complete nerd.
Big time.
And he's revolutionized long-range shooting. Let's be real.
Well, so he, being the leader of the Michigan FTR team, they connected with Pierce, who, Pierce builds race car engines for a living. So this guy knows what he's doing in terms of making products. Well, he also makes really good actions. He made the entire team titanium actions, and they chambered every one of them in 308.
Right.
And their approach was to use a bigger 215 grain bullet, because the idea was when the wind got blowing very hard, they'd have the advantage.
Sure.
And so the entire team had those actions and was developing loads together. They were training together. So it's one of the better case studies where everybody had the same gear that I've been exposed to. After shooting the entire season, and with Brian Litz on the case trying to make them work, they gave up as a competitive action. They gave up on titanium.
Gotcha.
They couldn't get them consistently dialed in, and now that load combination is capable of doing very well, and so it was, that aspect was abandoned. Now, so what I would offer is, if you're wanting something that's going to see a lot of heavy usage, like an FTR F-class team, steel. But if you're going to be hauling something around and you want it to be a bit lighter, that titanium action is going to do really well for you, and you're going to get great performance from it, but the benefit is definitely a weight thing. Here you've got your very lightest, then you have your next lightest, then you have this is a full rail, except it's been reduced. It's smaller here for weight. So this will be the midweight action. So now that's a Ruckus Hunter, but it's not as light as it can get. So it gives you a bit more rigidity. But some folks like the solid rail, if they're using bigger cartridges, they want some more rigidity. Then you've got your slightly heavier, but more tactical style action where you get some relief. Yep. And so you get some weight savings, but it really gives you a lot of rigidity, a lot of options in terms of where you can put your scope rings.
What model is this?
This is a Ruckus Tactical UL. So this was a requested configuration. And so we were able to make that, and now it's extremely popular because it fits very well into a PRS gun, feeds very well into an NRL Hunter gun. Now that's going to be a heavier gun, right? That's not going to be the 12-pounder.
Yeah, those anti-cuts reduce the weight of the overall just receiver, excluding the bolt, just due to configurations, of about 4 to 5 ounces.
That's going to be a great option for heavy usage. Weight is an issue, but not a massive concern, and rigidity is important. And then you've got, your King Kamehameha, your full-blown. It'll be heavier than the others, but this thing, you could drive a truck over it. So if you need a genuine tactical or a heavy use competition and the weight isn't a problem, you need a 22-pound PRS gun. Yep. That's your Huckleberry right there. So this layout helps illustrate, purpose-based differences between the Defiance actions. And so you've got ultralight hunter, light hunter, mid hunter, your lighter competition, and then your heavy competition in terms of their structure. Now, you could kill a deer with that.
Sure.
And you could shoot in a competition with that.
Yeah, sure.
But I wouldn't recommend doing it that way.
Yeah. Low round count, emphasis on weight. That's where you're going to go with titanium.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Perfect.
And titanium does feel different than your steel actions. Again, just due to the nature of the material. It's sandy, for lack of a better term, in the feel of it.
Not gonna feel as smooth.
Yeah, it's a weirdly
more galling too, right?
Yes. Yep. Because it's like a hard yet malleable material. Mm-hmm. So it's like hard and gummy at the same time, which is where that galling kind of comes in, which is also why we do a DLC coating and a nitrided bolt, because
it's not an option.
All of the conversations that we've had with people who manufacture titanium or work with it say that the best way to mitigate that is to have both parts in a process. So that's why we offer it that way, to just mitigate that at any way possible. Mm-hmm. But they do feel different than steel. That is a question that we have to frequently answer. Something we're definitely transparent about. It's just the way that it is.
Sure.
But that's a compromise with going with as light as is currently manufacturable.
One of the things that we're working towards is we're getting more organized in our information. One thing I believe is true is people that are very good at making things aren't very good at marketing them. And so we're, when we talk about how there's all these options, nobody that falls like a turd in a punch bowl, excuse me. But what we're working toward is helping people understand the usages.
Yeah.
And so instead of talking about how many different shrouds you can get and how many bolt handles you can get,
heavy tang, light tang,
right, all these kinds of configurations, it's what are you doing with it?
Yep.
If you're heavy round, mid round hunter, light, that's our message is evolving in that way, because we've already got the quality product. We just need to be able to intelligently talk about it.
Yeah, one thing that I thought was really cool that you guys offer that I got into most of the actions that we order, because AW mags. So AW cut, like that's becoming a bigger thing, especially with like some of the 6 mils that are out there, very popular and for really good reason. Those AW mags just make things and make life nice. So, whether you're ordering from us or you're ordering from Defiance, just understand that AW mag cut is an option. And if you don't know what AW mag is and you're shooting 6 mil or shooting PRS, those are probably some things you should definitely take a look at. And that's another option that's available to you. There's a lot of actions out there that they don't offer that. And I think that's something to consider. So when we talk about all the options that you guys offer when it comes to, heavy tang, light tang, different facets on the different bolt shrouds, like what are some things, is all that stuff cosmetic, or what are some of those options that can improve or have some sort of effect on performance?
Sure. So, most of it, for the most part, is an aesthetic.
Okay.
It's there's many opinions out there.
Sure.
Let's say that the heavy tang is going to be more accurate than the standard tang, just simply due to the fact that the more material that you can leave on an action of homogeneous metal,
Yep.
The more rigid it's going to be, and theoretically, the more accurate that product's going to be. So theoretically, the heavy tang is more accurate than the standard tang. But your shroud is really just an aesthetic. Kind of gives you a good custom look, custom feel to it.
It does.
I've got to say, I love the faceted shroud. It's my favorite one. I love diamond flutes. Everyone in the shop calls me girly for it, but I don't care. I think they're sweet.
Wait, the diamond flutes.
Diamond flutes. We don't have a diamond flute here. But
Yeah, so it's a...
We also offer a
I
diamond
also
flute.
like the deep flutes. I'm a big fan of the deep flutes.
But yeah, most of those are really just an aesthetic. It's going to be no functionality difference between a lot of those feature sets.
I believe it's reasonable, and this is a speculation on my part. I didn't have a conversation on this subject. Based on what we know about the operation and how the operation was set up, is that at one point Defiance's aim was to be basically the white label manufacturer for a bunch of gun builders.
Yeah.
And so they wanted the capacity to do a lot of different things because they wanted to make different products for all the different gun builders. And that's great, and we can still do that. When we do that, we do make actions for a number of different gun builders. Where that gets confusing is we sell so many actions to end consumers, or at least we talk to end consumers about it.
Sure.
And all those options is making them crazy.
Yeah, no.
And so we're talking about it like it's some kind of big positive, but people get confused by it, and
I get confused by it.
Well, yeah, the question you just asked. So, which shroud produces the best performance?
Yeah.
Well, in truth, they're all the same from a functionality and a dimensional point of view and a quality point of view, but there's that look. And so that's another part of what we're getting better at is we're taking what 80-90% of the people pick, and we're making those more standardized products, rather than saying, well, we can make it any way you want because we're Burger King,
Yeah.
And so that's helping organize people's understanding of it, because I think the question you asked is the real key to all of it. Is they're afraid that if they pick the wrong option, then that's the reason their performance is suffering.
Yeah.
And
and if you want to use that, you can, no matter what option you pick. It's like, oh man, freaking
darn bolt handle.
Standard tang got me again.
Listen, always go with the cool option because cool guns shoot better. That's a known fact, right? So we know that for sure. But I mean, it is one of the questions that I get frequently asked a lot is, what is going to do the best and perform the best? And I always ask, what's your intent and what's your application of the rifle going to be? Because that's going to help me answer those questions and kind of standardize those options for the person who's asking me.
No, absolutely. Well, one of the things about Defiance action that, man, they just look beautiful. And of course they feel just as good as they look. But I think you guys did a really good job with just the aesthetics of it. And I don't care what anybody says out there, aesthetics matter. At least it matters to me. I think, when an action does look cool and it looks good and it looks classic and just well done, which every single one of the Defiance does. I think that goes a long way as well. I don't know how much time and thought. And, you were talking about how basically you kind of, at one point at least, you guys were kind of set up to kind of be an OEM and offer different manufacturers your actions. And I did have that conversation with Tara, who was amazing, by the way, helping us out and helping me go through some of these options because, again, I'm a bolt gun guy, but, man, there's a lot of options. She was like, we can put, your custom name around. I was like, why would I do that? I want to sell Defiance. Like, oh, hey, I got the Paramount Custom Rifle Works action, or you can get a Defiance action. I think we're going to go with Defiance. You guys have established a name. There's a lot of marketing power just in the name of that. So I think that says a lot about the product that you guys make and the quality that you guys put into these. And it's well established in the industry.
And we appreciate that very much. There are some folks that's part of their approach.
Sure.
They just they want it to be branded their way, and we don't. It doesn't bother us
Yeah.
either way. We have the capacity to do either, but yeah, I'm very proud of the fact that very proud to be associated with such a strong brand. That's one of the nice things of my career is I've been involved with some really top quality brands, and so this is another example.
All right, Eric. So besides, short action and long action, which, by the way, what calibers does your long action accommodate?
We will go up to, excluding titanium in our classic, we go up to a 338 Lapua Magnum.
Nice. Okay. All right. Well, that's good to know. We haven't covered this, and you guys said this is a fairly new product that you guys are kind of, I guess you were saying that this was a product that you guys had actually manufactured and offered before.
So yeah, so this is the new CRF action, the Ruckus. It's a Ruckus, but it's in a CRF configuration, so controlled round feed. Defiance at one point made a controlled round feed that was more of a Mauser style, right?
Yes.
So it was more of a Mauser style. Well, the complications in making that particular setup are tremendous. And so we played with that for a while. We, try to figure out how we might do that differently. We actually ended up discontinuing that particular version.
Real quick before we get too far,
Sure.
because I know a lot of people out there don't know what controlled round feed is. So
Okay.
Taylor, if you will, talk to us a little bit about what that is and who's going to use it and what it's for.
Yeah. So the control round feed, well, the name is in the definition there. It is.
Don't get smart with me.
It is the bolt and the extractor controlling the round into the feeding of your chamber.
Okay.
So your round has to feed up underneath the extractor itself instead of a push feed style, which you could, push a cartridge into there and close your bolt over.
Right.
You can't do that with most traditional control round feeds. They're
So
designed
you couldn't single feed this if you wanted to, basically.
This one, we did think about that, so we can. So we designed that feature into this particular style of control round feed, just because one of the potential issues with control round feed is the fact that, if you have a slight jam up there and you come back and you push forward, you're not gonna be able to close that bolt because you can't push feed it. So it didn't feed up underneath the extractor. So we wanted to anticipate that and, since we were gonna kind of reimagine it, think about that and put it into what our current control round feed is. But in a traditional Mauser style control round feed, that feature is typically not available. You can chamfer the extractor heavily and kind of force it to do that, but it's not designed to do that.
Right.
But this does do that. I want to make sure we're clear.
Yes.
This does do that push feed and controlled round feed.
It is designed to function as both.
And why would somebody want a controlled round feed?
Control round feed was designed when powders were a lot more volatile. So you didn't really know, you could load the same load, but you may not get the same pressures. So in order to have the most reliable extraction, the control round feed was designed that way. It gives you the most reliable form of extracting something out of your chamber. Failure rate on those is extremely minimal. Now with the modernizing of metals and processes, Mini 16 extractors do really great, but that is the control round feed was designed for being able to reliably extract basically anything out of the chamber.
And that would be a situation like Dangerous Game.
Yes, wildebeest, something like that charging at you.
If you absolutely have to cycle the rifle and you're upside down, which we haven't figured out why anybody would be in that situation yet, but that does that.
I've had that conversation legitimately 3 times.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
Well, what if?
Right. So it's a dangerous game. It's when you absolutely positively need it to cycle under threat of your life. That's controlled round feed.
All right. So we basically have a mechanism that's guaranteeing or at least close to guaranteeing that we're going to feed and extract with the most reliability possible compared to some of the other traditional style actions.
Right. And and not that this happens a lot, but if you're on a match and you've got some kind of feed issues, you can take a moment, pull the bolt back and you can fiddle with it. if you're in a dangerous game situation or in some other situation where the circumstances are such that you need
Can't
to
call
feed that
timeout.
yeah, it can't. Then that action is doing that. And the reason why I'm bringing it up here is because Defiance is not only making the products that we make better and working to make them easier to understand, we're also innovating and making new things that are extraordinarily high quality. That now this one's for a particular group, but this particular group, those that have shot it so far, are very happy with it, and that's going to continue. We have some more products that we're going to be bringing out down the road. I don't want to speak too fast because I don't want to get people mad. Like, where is it? You know, you said you were making it, but we are making some other new things that are going to be really fun to see.
Cool. So is that the primary niche for control round feed is big game hunters?
Dangerous game? Yes. That's primarily in, safari types.
Interesting.
Yep. Where something that runs at you could eat you. Yeah. So maybe bears,
Yeah.
some of those guys. No.
I'm just kidding.
I have a thing about being eaten by a bear. So they send me pictures of all the bears that
What
are
about
walking around.
zombies?
Yeah.
What about zombies?
Yeah.
All right. So what is something about the Defiance actions that people don't know that you think they should know about?
There are folks that think of Defiance as this big faceless corporation. That this large company that's got all these folks, walking in and out, and it's not really connected to the industry. I'm the COO. I left Burger in part because of stuff that I'll define as corporate related, and that's me. Bob Beck, who owns it, is an avid hunter. He's hunting right now. He's an avid outdoorsman. He's been passionate about the shooting sports all his life. And that's what actually got him into becoming a television host. He actually hosted a television show.
Oh, nice.
So for somebody who can get out in the public eye, there are a lot of pitfalls with that.
Yeah.
So he loved it enough that he put himself out there in public to actually do it. That's how much he is a sportsman. The people who work there, Taylor's our sales manager. Tara's a wonderful person. These are all normal people. We've got 25 people working at Defiance, I think, something like that.
I think 31.
31.
Yep.
Okay, so and they're all good people. They're all good local people, and we're doing our best to do a good job. And I'd love for anybody to come out. We give tours. We show people around. It is a ITAR controlled establishment, so we do have to get you signed in, and you have to be official, have to be a citizen.
We're coming up there.
Yeah, and
Please
we
do.
would love to show everybody around. It's a great shop.
That would be really cool.
It's a lot of great people, and I think as people get to know more of those folks, because we're making a deliberate effort to do that, to feature them on our social media. Most of the people, this is one interesting thing. I follow football.
Yeah.
Now I'm a little disappointed in my Steelers at the moment because I think they should have let the guy retire, but that's a whole nother conversation. I enjoy football. I enjoy talking about football. So I go to the shop and I'm there once a month for a week, and I walk around, hey, who's watching football? There's one guy watching football in the entire shop because everybody else is hunting, fishing, out in the Montana wilderness.
Mm-hmm.
They're good outdoor people, and not that indoor people aren't good, because there's a lot of those in Phoenix.
What are you saying about indoor people?
Right? Us Phoenix indoor people.
Just the salt of the earth outdoor people.
Yeah, just
I got
those
you.
outdoor people, they breathe fresher air or something. It just they're good people who love being outdoors, who love doing what they do. Most of them started working for Defiance because they were sportsmen.
Sure.
Sportsmen and women, and they like the idea of getting involved in guns, and that's a great brand that they had heard about, and they wanted to be a part of that. So I'm not even sure what a corporate operation would look like, frankly. So I'm not even sure how to describe it, because I've never worked in one. So that's one thing I think those who think critically of Defiance, that's a pretty common notion, is that we're some faceless organization that doesn't care about the customers, and that's just not true.
One of the things that I talk to a lot of our retail partners and the companies that we do business with is I try to address just that, and I think that's so important that people out there, the consumers, actually see the faces behind the company. And I think that the gun industry has done a really poor job with that. And so many different companies in this industry don't want to get out in front of a camera and go talk to people, or for whatever reason. And I get it. But at the same time, I think there's a huge benefit to doing it. And I think it says a lot about you coming on here. And again, we've had, some of our other retail partners come on and talk about the products. And I think that is so important for people to feel connected to what's going on. And I think that is a huge detriment. If they start feeling like, you're some corporate entity and you're not real people and not shooters and all of these things. We have, there's also like a lot of the stuff, and some of it's valid. Like there's some companies that own gun companies that aren't very supportive of the Second Amendment. And I think that, if you want to make sure that you get a bad reputation in this industry, let that hang out there a little bit. But getting out in front and talking to people, talking about the product, it's very clear that you as the CEO are very passionate about the product. And, I think that's really important for customers out there watching this.
Something I'd like to say, firstly, Tara is wonderful, and I appreciate her, I think, more than most people know. She's truly incredible. She has an intimate knowledge of our products. She's worked there a very long time.
But
there's no but to that. No. When she hears this, I tell her all the time, you're incredible.
So awesome when we talk to her on the phone.
Absolutely
and so
incredible.
Patient and helpful and amazing.
One of the things that I extremely appreciate about Bob and Eric and everything that they do is like they genuinely care about the employees. Like Eric goes in, he knows everybody by name. He comes in, he checks on people. He's with us once a month. And they genuinely want us to have a career path going forward. And that's something that I think is very, truly rare, because it's a hard thing to do in the firearms industry to like really want that for your employees. Like
sure.
in something that's, people want to believe is a faceless corporation. I don't believe that in the slightest.
Yeah. No, and you've done a good job. I this isn't the first podcast you've been on. You've been getting out there and doing some things. You were kind of slumming it with Eric Cortina, but we won't hold that against you.
Yeah, boy, my last one with Eric, I went on a rant with him. I got angry old man syndrome. Boy, I went nuts. And one thing I was going to say is getting out and being public facing is very hard because you got to overcome your own issues.
Yeah.
And then the idea of once you get out there, boy, public is brutal.
They are.
And there's a part of the public that's wonderful.
Yeah.
And then there's a part of the public that's brutal. And the ones that are brutal are as brutal as the ones that are wonderful.
Yeah.
And it's really tough. And one truth of the matter is the firearms industry is an interesting industry because there are people, it's small enough, it's like big and small at the same time, but it's small enough that there are some folks that regard it as an interesting place to put money, to invest. And so there are venture capital outfits, there are very wealthy entities or individuals that sort of get into the firearms industry as a hobby.
Yeah.
Because a company that's doing, 3 to 4 million a year to some of these folks is a hobby, right?
Yeah.
Now to some of us other folks, that's a livelihood. But to these other folks, it's a hobby.
Money.
So there are organizations out there that are functioning based on financial statements. And I've seen it, and it's a way to make decisions. I don't think it's a great way to make decisions. Now you have to pay attention to the money because you can't go broke.
You gotta stay in business.
Yeah, that's a tricky balance on its own. But there are circumstances where there are some entities that don't have the same connection to the sport as others.
Sure.
And so getting labeled that, there was a point long time ago where Berger bullets used to fail to get to the target. And it was happening, this was years ago, this was when I was still involved. When this was happening, it's a friction issue.
Right.
And so it would usually happen at the end of a long string. It would happen usually on the second day of a match. So what would happen is some prominent shooter who is shooting burgers because they're highly competitive would be racing down on a particular match, and then they'd have one that wouldn't hit the target, it'd be a miss. Well, they started calling those Burger X's. Well, once that label got attached to them, I knew right away I had to fix that problem, because then every bullet that ever missed a target was going to be called a Burger X. And so we did. We fixed that problem. We figured it out. That's actually what birthed the match line is actually the newest line The hunting line is actually the old match line. So Burger hunting bullets are the original bullets that were ever made. The match bullets are the new ones that are thicker jacketed to insulate the core.
Sure.
Well, so then, looking at this situation, when I think about getting labeled as corporate, well, I'm aware of the fact that there are entities out there that are operating under those same kinds of conditions, or those kinds of conditions.
Yeah.
And I'm aware of how that affects their performance. And I'm aware of how that performance affects the customers. And so the notion that we might be labeled that to me, giving us that label to me is the same as when they were calling Mrs. Burger X's. Yeah. It's not only not true, it's speaking a non-truth that's giving people an impression that's completely false.
Yeah, no, that's fair. And you're right. And the fact is, there's some really good companies out there that just aren't good at forward-facing to the customer, where that impression is what the customer is left with. Like, I never see anybody out there talking about their products. There's some companies that just don't do a lot of marketing for one reason or another, or rely on their their dealers to do all the marketing or whatever else. And a lot of it, like you said, is they're just not comfortable doing that. And it's not because it's true. It's tough to get out here. Like you said, there's some risk involved anytime you get in front of a camera. Trust me, I know. You say things that can be taken out of context or people perceive to be weird, and it's scary. So I guess, for those of you out there, be gracious in the comment section. Be nice people.
Oh, no, the ones that won't, nothing you say to them is gonna stop them.
100%.
But the ones that read what those folks say.
What would Jesus do?
Well, the ones that read, that's the thing that bothers me. The people that make these really irrational statements, we're never going to see eye to eye.
Yeah.
There's something has happened where we're no longer on the same page. The thing that I get nervous about or concern myself with, or however, is when other people see that stuff and there's no counter narrative.
Sure.
And so when somebody says something like corporate, I want to get in there and be like, based on what?
Yeah.
What? Just because you don't like me?
That's not
You're going to call me corporate? You can't come up with a single identifying thing that can associate what I would regard as true corporate to what we are, yet they're just making that label. And so anyway, boy, you're going to get me angry old man going right now. No, but
unfortunately, it's kind of one of those similar. It is a way to undermine someone without facts, and that's really what it comes down to. It's like if somebody's in a political debate and somebody's called a racist or whatever, right?
Yeah.
It's the same unfortunate mindset that we as Americans shouldn't have toward one another, and you need to go out there and be better people. We all do. We all do.
And I'll wrap up. I don't want to stay on this too long.
No.
I wonder if some of them are even even care or in the firearms
Well,
industry.
look, here's the other thing that we need to realize, and it's something I have to remind myself of too, is that there are legitimate bots out there, and then there are legitimate folks that are anti-2A or have other political, and they're just in there causing chaos and creating emotions. Those things are real, and I think we need to realize that. And it's something I try to remind myself of every day. And even if they are real, I'm gonna tell myself, you know what, this isn't a real person. God bless them, and then you're banned. It is what it is.
Now, we didn't get into one thing that was said last time with the mention of the XM and the XM Plus. I don't even know if we need to touch base on that. The XM's discontinued. Now it's short, medium, long. That's it. Whereas at one point there was, well, I'll go. There's 3 actual versions of that. And the first one I don't even want to melt your brain with because it's too stupid to even understand. But what there was somewhat recently was short, XM, XM Plus, and long. And that's one of the things that was mentioned.
What is XM?
XM was the first medium length action ever produced, ever.
Okay.
But then
that was specifically for like 6.5 PRC.
Well, it was because of all these bullets Brian kept designing. We kept making, and
Longer
Bird kept
OJs.
making. Yeah. So you needed some more real estate to be able to run some of these bullets. So Defiance came up with the XM, and I believe they worked with somebody in particular. Was it Satterley?
Yeah, Scott Satterley.
Satterley.
Well,
Scott
Scott.
Satterley
was from First Group.
he was the one who encouraged Defiance to make that action, and we did. Well, then over time, it morphed into what is the current day industry medium. So our original medium, which was what we called an XM, is actually slightly shorter than that. So we ended up making what we called an XM Plus, which is the same as what is now the industry standard medium. So what we've done is we've removed the XM, and we can still make it if somebody absolutely needed one, but we just don't because nobody asked for that. We removed the original medium, the XM, and now we have a short, a medium, and a long that aligns with all the other industry standards in terms of those three things. And so that's something that might have been a little confusing. That's something that might be a little confusing about Defiance that we want to clean up, because there was a different naming process altogether that actually called a short a medium and called a Remington 40.
Model 7 short, which we called short.
Yeah.
We had Remington 700 short action clone, which we called medium. We had XM, and then we had XM Plus, and then we had long.
So right now, I mean, all the Defiance actions are basically 700s, right? 700 patterns.
Yes, 700. Yep, 700
Are you
clones.
still offering the Model 7
No.
action? Okay.
Well, so this is an important thing, because every once in a while there is a customer that wants to get a whole bunch of them. We can make anything we've ever made.
Gotcha.
There aren't enough requests for that Model 7 to make them on a regular basis. I mean, if maybe one or two a year get requested, it's just not worth confusing people with it.
All right, so just a real quick recap, folks. Some of the basic options, and there's more than this, and if you need help sorting through this stuff, but we have short action, we do have medium action, which we're going to talk about because I know a lot of people have questions about what medium action is, and of course, long action up to 338 Lapua. We have all kinds of different options when it comes to, really what it comes down to weight, and where you need to prioritize weight, and you know, whether you want a 70-degree throw or a 90-degree throw. But again, if those are questions that you have. Now, short, medium, long action, and of course, you can also get the stainless versus the nitride. That's really a matter of aesthetics, and it's just really up to your personal preference on that. Now, let's talk about medium action, because I get this question a lot. What is the difference between a short, a medium, and then a long action? I think most people understand what a short action is and a long action. Taylor, talk to us a little bit about what a medium action is and what calibers that's kind of specific for.
So the medium action is something that can accommodate a 3.2 cartridge overall length.
Gotcha.
So that's something that's going to be a little bit more predominant in like the short action magnum things and people who are hand loading. So that's really where the medium action comes into play the most. Now, some people will utilize that in some medium action standard, like a 6.5 by 284 configuration, but it is predominantly short action magnums and accommodating for hand loaders that are seating their bullets to a 3.2 cartridge overall length.
Gotcha. Let me ask you this. If you end up getting a medium action, let's say I decide that I want a medium action, but I'm going to run 6.5 Creedmoor. I'm still running it at 2.8 overall length. Am I going to have any feeding issues or any problems with that if I go with a medium versus a short?
No, so if you bring that up to your gunsmith, there will be a little bit of tinkering that'll need to be done in the magazine itself, just to kind of push that cartridge a little bit closer to the feed ramp itself, and that'll give you the smoothest feeding possible. So you can do it, just with the caveat that there's going to be a little bit of tinkering involved.
Sure. So primarily we're talking about 6.5, PRC, some of these other kind of short action / magnum cartridges.
Yeah, the WISMs, the SOMs, the PRCs are going to be predominantly in that.
Awesome. All right, so hopefully that was helpful, informative, and answers some of the questions that we get a lot. And so again, if you need help figuring out what action you need, what features you need, we'd love to help you out, and we'll get you squared away. Now, you guys are also affiliated with one of the most well-known stock brands in the industry, McMillan. Let's talk about that a little bit.
Well, that's where I started again after I left Berger, was over at McMillan. And McMillan is doing a lot of cool things, but I think the thing that makes makes McMillan challenging to talk about is similar to what Defiance goes through in the sense that McMillan has a tremendous amount of options.
Yeah.
I mean, there's nearly 300 different molds that have been made. Those are completely distinct, different rifle stock shapes. Now, to make things simple, 80+% of folks using the hunting stocks are going with the Mountain Tracker LR, which is just a slightly different angle on the butt for long range.
Here, right?
No, this is the ELR Hunter. And it's, so 80% or more, certainly 90% plus of the hunters are using basically these 4 stocks. They're the more modern interpretation. Now, the one thing that I think, I don't think it's important, I know it's important, is the distinguishing factor of McMillan is that they're battle proven. And by battle proven, I mean that McMillan was making stocks that were actually awarded Marine Corps sniper contracts.
Yep.
And so we were making the M40A1, A3, and A5. The stocks for those, there's actually 2 different stocks, the HTG and
also for Canadian Special Forces as well.
Yeah, way that we make stocks was designed to endure the kind of abuses and things that would happen in the military. And that's one of the reasons why they have a lifetime guarantee. Well, we still make stocks. We make these hunting stocks the same way. We just use some lighter materials. Now, a couple things, McMillan, I don't know why, but the previous owner insisted that it be called McMillan Fiberglass Stocks. The name of the company be called Fiberglass Stocks. We make stocks with carbon fiber every day. That stock's got carbon fiber in it. So now it's just McMillan stocks because we do quite a bit of carbon fiber. We actually even did Kevlar when it first came out because they thought maybe that was going to be a cool stock material. Turns out it's not worth the headache. So we don't bother with Kevlar anymore. But the point is, the method that they developed to be sustainable in combat is now what's being used to make hunting stocks. And these stocks, how they're made is important because alternative stocks are going in the direction of trying to make them lighter, trying to make them cheaper, trying to make them simpler. And now, because there's 2 worlds, because there's chassis, because chassis do a different thing. They have to facilitate other objectives. But when it comes to just stocks, the efforts to go in the direction of cheaper and lighter beyond what they should be and easier is doing some things that is affecting how well people's guns group and the flyers, the mechanical flyers.
Yeah.
And so one thing I'll point out on this particular stock is the thing that McMillan does, because there are some stocks even recently that are coming out with these bedding block systems or these V blocks. Well, what McMillan has done for a very long time is we use what's called machined in pillars. So they're precision machined in. So first of all, it's circular.
Right.
So you don't have to worry about any angular alignment. And then once we put them in when the stock is what we call flat top, meaning the entire stock, none of this inlet is here. It's all completely flat. So we put them in while it's flat.
Oh, wow.
But then when we machine the inlet, we're machining the inlet precisely down to those pillars. So what you effectively have is the same thing as a mini chassis would provide,
Right.
except it's smaller, so it doesn't take up, so you don't have angular issues.
Yep.
It allows for more strength. You don't have any crushing problems. And the thing that I think a lot of people don't understand, because bedding is a big topic of discussion.
Sure.
One of the things that's true about McMillan stocks, because of our precision inlets, they are drop-in ready. You're putting your action into precision pillars that are aligned very well, and then the composite material around them almost acts like a bedding or like little fingers, So you're putting it down into this material that the action sits in. So everything's extremely stable. Now, those that want to, a lot of gun builders, they'll spot bed it. Like they'll bed it right up by the lug. They'll bet because it's so precision made that you don't need a lot of bedding compound to put it in there, but some people do that. And then others do a full bed. And matter of fact, there's nothing wrong with a full bed. If you're wanting to reduce variables, then that's one way to do it. It's also something that we're aware of is that a lot of the competitive shooters that are using chassis are starting to bed them because they're struggling with issues related to precision and they're struggling with issues related to flyers and point of impact shift.
Yeah.
Well, these stocks, they don't suffer those same particular issues.
Well, one of the things, folks, I wanted to say was, number one, the fit and finish on this is just remarkable. This is just an excellent looking stock. But the other thing, it is ridiculously light. When he handed it to me, I was actually surprised. I said it was probably around 2 pounds. But we went ahead and got the scale out. Make sure that you guys can see that.
2 pounds, 1 ounce?
Yeah, so we're basically at 2 pounds and just under another ounce. So, yeah, I mean, that thing is ridiculously light.
And one thing to keep in mind, some manufacturers, they give weights for just the stock by itself.
Without the spacers.
That's got all this, that's fully extended. So there's
Yep.
spacers that would typically be removed. It's got an ARCA and a Picatinny on it already. So this is drop in, ready to shoot. There are some manufacturers that use weights that don't even weigh it with the QD cups in.
Yep.
Yeah.
And you were talking about rigidity issues and point of impact shift with some of these lighter stocks that, quite frankly, they're flexing. That's one of the problems that they're having. We're seeing this a lot with the NRL. You know, all these NRL shooters are trying to get the lightest possible stock. You know, they're also compromising on some of the accuracy and benefits of a more rigid stock. So this is just, man, I like this.
Well, and the important thing is there's no free lunch in physics.
Sure.
If you make something so extremely light that it can't hold up to the violent action that occurs, you know, in and around it, that's not better.
Yeah.
You know, and so at McMillan, so one thing we use is it's a completely wet process.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why we do that is even though, now in this case, this is a carbon stock. Let me see if you can see. So there is something that looks like a seam, but it's not a seam. Because what we do,
seems like a seam.
It seems like a seam.
But
what we do is, but it's not.
It's not a seam.
It's phlegm. What we do is it's a wet process and there's overlap. So when we put this all inside the mold, everything is wet and it overlaps over each other. And then we have a way to pressure that so that we can hold it in position while it cures up. So that entire shell is all one piece.
Yeah.
And one of the things that's true about other methods and other materials is they can butt up next to each other,
right?
But they're not overlapped like the way that we do it. If people are struggling with group size and they're struggling with flyers and they've tried different barrels and they've tried different loads, the two places that I would recommend that they try is an action related to the ignition system. So you've either already got it and you need to get it checked out, or you need an action that is capable of having a quality ignition system, and the stock. Because in our opinion, there's more poor performance occurring in things related to gimmicks that people are trying to promote on various different stocks that people don't understand that that's where some of that stuff's coming from. And the reason why I say that is because we've tried all that stuff. We've tried those different methods. They don't produce, it's that same or better. It's got to be the same or better, and they don't do that. So we don't use them. So we use methods that we know, these are a lifetime guarantee stocks. We had a situation where a policeman was in his car, was rear-ended, and his duty rifle was in the back, and the thing caught fire. Oh, wow. And so he called us up and asked us if we'd replace the stock based on the lifetime warranty because it got burned up in a fire. So yeah, we'll do it. So we did. Nice. But the point is, we don't replace many stocks. Another thing that does happen because of our lifetime guarantee is we get people who call us because they, you know, not all the stocks are Louis Vuitton purses, so they don't all have their names on them. Sure. But so some of those stocks, they don't know whose it is. So they'll call us and say, oh, hey, you guys got a lifetime warranty. Is this a McMillan? I'm like, no, sorry, it's not. And we'll say, well, here's what happened. And then every once in a while we'll hear back from them because they will have contacted the other brand and the other brand can't help them because that's not something that they support. Sure. And we do. So it's another one of these things where the perception isn't aligning with the truth. And the truth is, like, one perception that gets brought up from time to time is that they're complicated to order. How I will describe that as a truth is there's two there's two truths related to that. One of them is we have an extraordinary online store, and by extraordinary I mean it's got a lot of options on it, a lot of different inlet options. So there's a lot of stocks that are literally ready to go right away. So those aren't hard to order because there's a picture of them and it's the actual stock. That's one thing that we do on our store, on McMillan store, that's unique, is the picture you see on the store, that's the picture of the actual stock that you're going to get. The other thing that I would say about the McMillan stocks is when folks describe them as complicated, the actual truth is they're tailored. Mm-hmm. And so if you know what you have, our customer service folks can give you exactly the right stock, and they can make the process super easy for you and be happy to do it. We also have a tool on our website where it's just a quoting tool. It's not an ordering tool, so I don't want anybody to feel like they're ordering a stock if they do it. But you can go through and you can choose, starting with the cartridge, the action. It will populate, okay, based on this, these are your choices.
Right.
And then you pick a choice, okay, based on that choice, then these are your next choices. And so it actually walks a person through each one of the choices that they would have to make. Now, if they don't know their gear, which is fairly common, then just call us, and we will happily tailor the stock to that person. And by tailor, like this, I'll use this one as an example. So this particular stock, it's the U10-7, and the 7 is because it has this long flat butt area instead of the hook.
Right.
So there's a U10 that has the hook. This is a universal. So this stock accepts, this particular one is a short action. This stock accepts any Remington 700 action. It's also set up with a barrel channel that it can accept anything up to an MTU. So this particular stock can take all of those things. As long as it's a Remington 700 action, and smaller than an MTU barrel, it will fit in this stock. And so this is a solution for someone. Now this is a tactical stock.
Yeah.
This is definitely one of our tactical stocks, and it's a much heavier stock. The point being, the complexity isn't there if you know what you have, or at least you know where to look for that information, because we can help.
Sure.
And the only reason why there's complexity is because we've been doing it for over 50 years.
Yeah.
I mean, since 73. So I had to read my shirt. We've been doing this for over 50 years. So if we come out of with the 2 new models every year, that's 100 models.
Right.
So yeah, there's a lot.
And then a lot of variations. Of
Yeah, there's a lot. But we know what they are, and we're happy to help anybody who needs it. We are making things simpler. Hunters, you want to look at the Game Warden 2.0, the Mountain Tracker LR, the Mountain Tracker, or the ELR Hunter. Those are the hot hunting stocks right now. Tactical, I mean, the A5 is the beast.
Yeah.
The HTG was the stock that the M40A1 was built on. The A35 was the stock, the A4 was the stock that the M40 A3 and A5 were built on. So we have a number of tactical stocks as well that have been made. And those are what 90%, 90% of the McMillan customers are buying like 6 stocks.
Yeah.
Even though we have 300. So it's not as complicated as it seems.
Well, the thing that I like about the options that you have here is obviously there's a lot of people that they don't like the looks of a chassis, and I get it. Some of these traditional rifles just look so much better, but here you have all the modularity and the adjustment capabilities that you get with a chassis. You got, adjustable length of pull, adjustable cheek riser. We have Arca rail up here. I mean, there's just all the options that you would want on a modern rifle while still kind of maintaining that traditional stock look, if that's what you want. And just getting just outright performance. I mean, this thing looks good, it feels good. We got sling detents that's more vertical, palm swell and grip right there. So yeah, just a lot of cool stuff that you guys got going on here.
And we recognize that there is a purpose for chassis.
Sure.
We're not, I wouldn't even, we have an option for somebody wanting a tactical stock.
Yeah.
We have an option. We definitely see purpose in chassis, and to say that McMillan will never make a chassis is not a true statement. We just want to, again, we want to make sure we're doing something smart.
Well, I think though that the perception is that you can't get some of these options, or it's more complicated to get some of these options like an Arca rail on a stock. And this is one of the conversations I have with a lot of people. I'm like, if you want adjustability, you want modularity, you want an Arca rail, like you probably should go with a chassis. And that's not necessarily true. And we're definitely going to start carrying some of the McMillan stocks and start building some of our guns with these stocks. I mean, it's just would be dumb not to. And I think for the hunters out there, for those of you that just prefer, and there's lots of folks out there that just prefer a stock over a chassis, I get it. Yeah, we're going to be able to offer those options to you. Same question I gave you with Defiance, man. What is something about McMillan that people don't know that they should know?
That it's being run by a guy who has been working there now for, I believe he's on his 15th year. McMillan, another not corporate situation. It's got a long heritage of people who've worked there. One of our sales staff has been there over 30 years.
Wow.
So Lynn's awesome. She does a great job. We have production employees who have been there for 30 years. It's made up of folks. Now that group, we're in Phoenix.
Right.
So there are hunters, but there's a lot more of these tactical stocks are used by McMillan employees.
Right.
They love their tack guns,
Yeah.
and Varian in particular. He loves tack guns. Now, we make a ton of hunting stuff. The hunting stuff is a very big part of McMillan. I'd say it's probably 70% or more is hunting, but his thing, he really likes the tactical stuff. So these are sportsmen that love what they do. Varian is incredibly committed to what he's doing there, and I would just encourage people to understand that it's a group of dedicated, committed sports people who are doing a great job, who've been doing it for a while, and they will continue to do so.
Well, the other thing that's cool, and there's a lot of people that want it too, is like with McMillan, you have the option if you want to make it, M40, a whatever model clone. That's always fun. So, those are some other options that you have too. What do you think, Taylor?
I think I'm gonna have to call in and get me one of these when I get back.
That is, dude, I love
Just
that.
saying.
I love that stuff.
Well, the great thing,
So nice.
frankly, the great
It's
thing
so
of
light.
this
It's
ELR
bonkers.
Hunter and the mountain trackers, frankly, is usually when we show these to people, they say, okay, that looks a little bit like a McMillan. Like, what is all this? And it's like a fresh new McMillan.
Yeah.
And it's been turning a lot of heads. And so there are folks that are like, yeah, I know McMillan. I've seen all their stuff. It's like, well, you haven't seen these. And when they see it, they're like, oh, wow, where'd this come from? And we've got some really cool stuff coming up in the future. McMillan, we're putting a lot of energy and resources into our R&D department because we want to be able to do this a little faster. There is actually a market within the rifle building world for particular stocks that might be like the Paramount Tactical stock, and we want to be able to make those stocks more quickly.
Sure.
Because if you have 20 different folks that would like to have their own stock made, and you can only really get them out maybe 3 or 4 a year, that's not going to satisfy most of those people for a while.
Sure.
And so we want to get to where we can get one of these things up and running in a relatively short period of time, so that we can answer we're getting quite a few requests for that. They want a McMillan stock that's made like this, because they want how we make them, but they have a particular idea on, that's one of the difficult things about stocks, is everybody's bodies are different.
Yeah.
And not only are people's bodies different, but how they shoot is different. And I watched a podcast recently that talked about positioning behind the rifle. You and Eric, you were talking about all that. Well, you got some folks that, for reasons why we don't know, they get at 90 degrees on it, and some folks line up like you should. And well, those different shooting styles produce different reach angles and all that kind of stuff. And so when you can have one person get behind a stock and they absolutely love it, and then you can have another person get behind it and they can't shoot it. And it makes it very hard to dial in the specifics of a particular stock.
Sure.
And so we're working towards having that ability of very quickly being able to say, how do you want it? Now, this is going even farther beyond. This is beyond tailoring it, and we'll make you one, and if you like it, then that one's effectively yours. Awesome. In the sense, it's like a branded, like a Defiance action that's branded, whatever they want to call it. Sure. The cool as ever.
That's awesome.
That kind of thing. So that's something that we're working pretty hard on right now.
That's good. Well, I got some ideas for you.
Yeah.
We'll talk.
Okay,
We'll talk.
good.
Well, listen, Taylor, Eric, man, I appreciate you guys. I can't tell you how cool it is that you guys flew all the way out here so we could do an in-person podcast. I think it says a lot to your commitment to, viewers out there and your customers. And man, you guys are doing some great things, and we appreciate you as a dealer because you guys have been great for support. Yeah, I love working with you guys, and glad to be part of the Defiance team and the McMillan team. You got to order some stocks.
So, well, thank you for having us out, Gary. You're doing
thank you very
great
much.
work.
Well, thank you.
And not only you're doing great work in a lot of areas,
Well, thank
and
you.
I very much appreciate what you're doing. And I'm a fan, and I'm following you closely because I really like.
Now it sounds creepy.
Well, yeah, it is. It's really creepy when I rub the TV. That's when it gets really creepy. I like rub the screen. I'm like, Gary. No, but I'm so tired of misinformation.
Sure.
I'm so tired of it. And to see you speaking facts and exploring ideas that you don't necessarily agree with.
Sure.
And you're exploring them, you're taking them in, you're processing them. Here's why this is this, here's why this is that. To me, that's how news coverage should be.
Sure.
And the fact that you're doing it is refreshing, and thank you. And I very much enjoy it, and I'm going to continue to follow it because I find it a breath of fresh air.
Oh, thank you.
So
I really appreciate
it up. Keep it up, please.
Well, thank you. And most importantly, it was really great to hang out with you guys today and get to know you a little bit and meet you. And thank you for coming, man.
No, thank you for having us. Appreciate it.
Well, folks, for all your Defiance needs, for all your McMillan needs, go to Paramount Tactical. And until next time, stay armed, stay ready. We'll talk to you soon.